Remote, you're working, when you work from home, you've got to do the work as we do it on the Google Meet to be counted present. You've got to submit that day's work. You cannot just be on the Meet. That's not going to be enough. You've got to submit your work. So we're going to start today in Canvas on the home page for biology. You are going to, you have two ways to get to today's activities. You can click on the link underneath here that says today's activities, or you can click on modules. It's to the same place. We are now in week 7. So we're going to be, this is kind of what we have on the agenda today. We're going to do the bell ringer real quick. We're going to finish up our lab report for the osmosis lab. I have a little cells transport review we're going to do. And I have a link for the Kahoot review and Quizlet review because we're going to test on cells tomorrow. So we're going to get to the lab report, we'll have to back up to week 6. So we're going to go to the bell ringer first. And this is just reviewing some organelles. So on here, you want to do this together. These are extra credit points. You'll click on Submit Assignment. And a text entry box will show up. And it says in which organelle does photosynthesis take place? Remember, organelles are the parts of the cell.
Chloroplast.
Very good. Chloroplast. So you're going to type 1 chloroplast. And maybe do spell check. I'll let the O out. You can put it plural or leave it singular. There's an organelle where cellular respiration is going to take place.
Mitochondria.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
Mitochondria. Our next unit is going to deal with those two specifically, those two organelles. What two organelles are used for movement? So not all cells will have this.
Flagella and cilia. Oh, I'm on the road. Okay.
Yes, you are.
What's she gonna count us with today?
Huh?
Said, what's she gonna count us with today?
Everybody got Valentine's candy today.
I know that. I don't know subs.
All right. What does the smooth ER do? Do you remember what it makes?
Smooth ER makes
Goes with an L.
lipids.
Lipids. So once you get those in, so you'll have
And how you spell that?
copy these 4 in and submit it. It's 4 extra credit points.
I think someone's
Someone have a question?
Yes, ma'am. I said, how you spell that?
Which one?
The number 4.
Just makes, M-A-K-E-S, and then lipids, L-I-P-I-D-S.
How you spell it?
Which one?
Very top.
Chloroplast, number 1 is chloroplast, C-H-L-O-R-O-P-L-A-S-T.
2.
Mitochondria, M-I-T-O-C-H-O-N-D-R-I-A. Sometimes you'll see it mitochondrion. I forget which one is, one's plural, one's singular. Flagella and cilia. It makes sense.
How you spell cilia?
C-I-L-I. makes sense. When you click submit, you will see the nice little graffiti that pops up so you know it's submitted. We're actually gonna go back to modules. A lot of times you can just click on the next button, but we're gonna go back to modules because we're gonna have to go back and finish, and get the file. If you don't, oh, it's gonna be locked. Shoot. If you've been face to face, you have a paper copy of the lab, so you'll want to get that out. If you haven't been face to face, get into the box.
Are you about to say like finish the analysis stuff?
Yeah, you may have already done it. So just, I want to get, there's an opportunity to, so I need to, go in here, unlock, because I forgot since we didn't get it done last week. That I'm gonna have to change. So last week, what we did is we tested osmosis by using gummy bears. And we put gummy bears in water to begin with. And, so if you are, trying to get to this, it is, under modules, week 6. Tuesday, 2/9, this one right here, lab exploring osmosis. So in this lab, you should have made a prediction to begin with, and if you weren't here last week to see it, if you'll just go ahead and write down what you think would happen to the gummy bear when placed in water that comes out of the sink, distilled water, and salt water. So does the gummy bear get larger or smaller? So you should have a hypothesis here. And so on the first day, we put a gummy bear in tap water, we put a gummy bear in distilled water. On Wednesday, we measured those. So the initial for both of them were about 2.4 grams for the majority of the gummy bears. After the tap water, we calculated a weight, and after, then we put it in salt water, and we calculated a weight. And so you needed to make, it says make a line graph here, so what you would graph, and I actually disagree, I think it should be a bar graph, because you can put day 1, day 2, and day 3. So if you were going to do this, let me open up a Canvas. And I'll show you how you can do it in Canvas if you're not doing it on paper. And for those that are on, we'll use somebody's data here. They'll call it out for me in just a minute. So let me get this open. So a bar graph would probably be the simplest. It's kind of hard to, in my opinion, graph if you don't have two sets of numerical data on a line graph. So, all right. So if you didn't get missing work completed from the beginning of the semester through the 12th, anything that was this lab is the only thing from that series that you have until March to make sure March 12th to be finished. March 12th is the end of quarter 3. So you need to make sure you're getting everything in for this quarter. So to do a graph, I would have 2 sets of bar graph. So up here, you're going to type for hypothesis what you think would happen to the size of the gummy in each of those types of water. You're gonna have some data here. Ooh. Didn't mean to get on that. All right, Caleb, can you tell me, do you have yours here? I don't have yours here. Do you have your data here, or Alex is over there?
Yeah,
2.4 here. What was his day 2?
that his that one was 2.5, but it's okay. 13.5, 13.9,
Okay. And then here,
4.9,
4.9. And then
2.6,
I'm just going to do 2.4 because that was the majority.
15.7,
7
and 5.3.
and 5. All right, so if you don't have any data, you guys can use. Oh, man. What was that last one?
5.3.
5.3. So if you don't have data, you can use that. So we're gonna make a bar graph. So the easiest thing to do, if you're having to do this on the computer, is you would write, you've got tap water and you've got distilled water. So I would let tap water be one color, so maybe yellow. Oh, it's not color, get it shade. All right, I guess I'll just draw it. So we're gonna do yellow here, and we'll just say pink over here. All right, so if for each line is just gonna be worth 1, and we're not gonna worry about typing it. So 2.4, so I would go up to 2, a little bit above the line here, and I would draw a graph right here. So that's going to be the initial for tap water. All right, then I'm going to go in 13.9, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's almost 14. So I'm going to draw a line here, and I'm going to attempt, it's not going to be very pretty on the computer, but I'm attempting to draw a line here. So that's day 2. And then day 3 is 4.9, which is almost 5, so that's going to be almost up here. Like that. And then I'm going to choose, oh, I just did distilled water in pink, so I'm going to change that to pink. Change this one to yellow. Oops, yellow. Yellow. All right, so I'm going to do 2.4 again for distilled water. So it's going to match my other one. Oops, except I didn't draw it very well. And then my middle one is 15.7. So that was about 14 there. So I'm going to say 5, 10, 15 is going to be over this line here. So notice it's just not going to be pretty doing it on the computer, but you get the idea. And then day 3, 5.3, it's going to be right above this line here. All right, so based on this, we can see that distilled water took in more water on day 2. When we put it in salt water, the salt water is shrunk back down, so it lost water. And for some reason with this data, the tap water lost the most water. It should have been the distilled water, should have shrunk the most, but it didn't work out that way. All right, so for the analysis, we're not necessarily going to address number 1 in this case. We're going to explain definitely number 2. So in our text box, and most of us got similar, the same thing. So refer to your graph and explain what it shows you. So you're going to say that water, let's see, less tap water entered the gummy bear after day 1 than distilled water. Now, if you don't know why, distilled water has nothing but water molecules in it. Tap water may have some calcium, may have some metal that comes from the pipes, if it's metal pipes. Just it has other things in it because it's been treated where city water, it could have some chlorine in it and different things. So tap water is not pure water. So it's going to take less of it to balance the concentration of water. All right, salt water, remember, salt water adds something to the water outside of the gummy bear. So it's the concentration of water is greater on the inside. So water is going to leave the gummy bear to go to the outside. So day 3, water left the gummy bear.
Exocytosis back in.
Because there was a greater water concentration inside the gummy bear, so water left gummy causing it to shrink. So you would need something like that for the analysis. And then the conclusion, you go back. Did you say that the salt water would shrink, that the gummy would get bigger in water? If you did, you would say it supports, my data supports the hypothesis. If you didn't say that, you would say my data does not support the hypothesis. Supply an explanation of why your results turned out the way they did. Think of a real world explanation. So you'll do 1 and 2 on your own. The real world explanation is, I'm going to go back to the IV solutions you get when you're dehydrated. So when dehydrated, the IV solution must match the concentration of your bodily fluids, so your cells take on too much water or lose too much water. So when you're dehydrated, your cells have already lost too much water. If you were to put pure water, your cells would take on too much water and erupt. It would be just as bad as being dehydrated. So the IV solution has to match that concentration. So that's sort of a real world connection. And so once you've added 1 and 2 here, and you have put your hypothesis, you can submit that. And I'll go back over here to submit using Candy. You just press this button right here. So if you're face-to-face and you did it on paper, you would submit a blank copy. And if you're at home, you need to make sure you've done it here. So that was just finishing up last week. This is the only assignment from the first 6 weeks that I have in modules that you're able to do up until March 12th. So if you haven't done that, you need to make sure you've done it. If you've completed it, if you think you might need to change something, you still have that opportunity to go in and modify that. Back to today, we're going to look at this sales transport review, and I have a copy
I'm done.
for you. So practice putting it all together. So here's a copy. Right on. And if you're done, you can submit it.
Yay.
So, what you can do to earn extra credits, it'll also let me know if I set this up. If you click on this Kahoot link and it takes you straight to a podium, you let me know, because then I've got to reset it up.
Yeah.
But in Quizlets, there's a couple Quizlets there you can use to also review, but this one earns you extra credit points because it has a 0 here.
Mhm.
So doing, a couple things in the Quizlets, like
Games.
the
Like
games
we
and
did last
stuff,
week. Well,
you
this
get
weekend.
extra
Well, last
credit.
weekend.
Huh? We're doing this right now, but she did it while we were going over it. I gave you the paper copy, if you wanna do it on paper. So here's what we're doing on paper.
Mm.
And pretty much this reviews, everything that we have talked about where cell transport is concerned. So our, test is gonna be on the parts of the
It
cell.
takes me to it.
Okay, a little bit of, the cell theory, like the 3 statements of the cell theory, plus this, cell membrane and how this, works. So when you're looking at this, what property of the cell membrane allows some molecules to pass easily through it, but not all? What did you put there? Well, it's already telling, it's not the cell wall, we're already telling it's a cell membrane. So what about the cell membrane allows you to know allows it to come in? That allows some molecules to pass easily through it, but not all.
Oh.
Think about the 2 phospholipids. Think about the phospholipids. The head of
And-
phospholipid is
And
hydrophilic.
hydrophilic and hypertonic.
Tails are hydrophobic. So if you are a molecule that is polar or charged, will you be able to get through the membrane?
Yeah. No.
No. So, where that is.
Mm.
And what they're probably looking for is semi-permeable. So semi-permeable because it will allow some things to pass through, some not.
Okay.
So semi-permeable. So let me,
SEM,
go here,
ER, MAB. Semi-permeable. Yeah.
and so that means half permeable. So, think about a sponge. A sponge allows liquid to soak right through it. So semi-permeable is,
Doesn't rocks use that? Like rocks?
yeah, it depends the space around them, yeah. So if there's space around rocks, it's permeable, it allows, water to seep around it. But with membranes, it's semi-permeable because it will, allow some things and others it will not. So if I get this up, I can type along with this. So if you're working online, we're doing this together, so it's an easy way to get 3 points here. Semi-permeable. Infinity. because the cell membrane is made up of two layers, what do we call that?
Phospholipids.
We call it it's made up of phospholipids, but we call it a
Bilayer.
bilayer. Bi meaning two, bilayer. What is the transport of water across the cell membrane called?
Osmosis. Osmosis.
There was a poster that came out a long time ago that had Garfield with a textbook on his head, and it says learning by osmosis. Well, the textbook is not water, so it was incorrect. It should have been learning by diffusion, not osmosis. Transport that moves materials against the concentration gradient. So it's going up the gradient, like going uphill.
Not ATP.
It'll use ATP.
Energy is
It
wait.
needs energy. What's it called?
In-
Active transport.
Hi, Mrs. Snell. How are you?
I'm good.
Alex?
No, he didn't come in today. He's not online either. Oh, maybe he is online now. Yes, he's online.
Is he? Okay. I'm gonna stay in here until lunch, okay?
Okay,
Is that all
that's
right
fine.
with you?
All right, so for those that are online, we've done 1 through 4. So number 1 was semi-permeable, number 2, bilayer, number 3, osmosis, and number 4, active transport. All right, now when we're looking at this, it says label the type of transport picture and add arrows to the picture to show the movement and write a sentence describing what will happen to the cell. So if it's larger font, it means there's more water. So if there's more water inside, where's that water gonna go? Outside, so you draw an arrow going out of the cell. And what do we call, to get water out of the cell or into a cell, what is it called? Because it's dealing with water, it is called osmosis.
I can't see it.
Now, what's gonna happen to the cell? Water will
It will shrink it,
leave the cell,
causing it to shrink.
causing to shrink. All right, so now we just have little particles. So these are small little particles, and there's more on the outside than the inside. So which direction are those particles going to move?
They're gonna go inside the cell.
They're going to go inside, so you draw an arrow showing that they're going inside. And what deals with little small particles doing
Simple
this?
diffusion.
Diffusion. You can say simple diffusion or just diffusion. And is anything really going to happen to the cell here? No, because it's not water. Water is when it's going to shrink or burst. So here we're just going to say
It's moving small, that's what I put, it's moving small particles.
molecules will move into the cell down the concentration gradient. Now, look at these particles here. We have this little piece right here, which is symbolizing a protein. We still have more out here. And so what's going to happen?
Facilitated diffusion.
Facilitated diffusion, more than likely. So it's still going to go in, but it's going to go in through that protein because it needs help. So this is called facilitated diffusion because it has to have help. So this is the use of a protein channel to move larger molecules into the cell down the gradient. So this is just basic vocabulary here, and you're just writing the letter. So 8, used in active transport but not in passive. Energy, so that is H. Process of taking in minerals using a vesicle. So I'm bringing in minerals, endocytosis, which is G. The key is taking in, endo is in. A solution that causes water to rush out. So it's going to shrink the cell. And you said which one?
The hypertonic.
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say, I probably got them mixed up.
I was reading the other one wrong. Can be used in both active and passive.
E molecular pumps.
Not the pumps. Think of pumps as needing energy.
Alright,
But there's
okay,
one other thing.
I got that, I knew that one was a protein channel.
Protein chain.
Yeah, that was the one that I didn't know.
Process of removing substances from the cell. So removing substances, stuff leaving the cell, it's exiting the cell.
It's exocytosis.
Exocytosis, exo means to leave or exit. When the osmotic concentration is the same, so we're talking about water here. If you see the term osmotic, think about water. It's the same inside as out. Isotonic, C. And then the solution that causes a cell to swell and eventually burst.
B hypotonic.
Yeah, B, hypotonic. And then the transport ions across the cell membrane
E
is E. And you've got to have, typically, and those are pumps because normally they're going to be pumped in. All right, so if you did this together, you got free points here, a free 100 for those that are online. Hint, free 100 if you did it with us. What is left for today is if you didn't finish that lab report, you're working on that, and then you are taking time to do the Quizlet or the Kahoot. This is just where you play against yourself. And if others are playing right now, you'll see them and it's like you're playing against each other. And then the Quizlet. The Quizlets, they're extra credits. So I'll go in and I will look. If you join my class, I'll be able to see if you did anything and give you some extra credit points. So those are the two things we're going to do. Tomorrow we're going to test. It is not going to take the whole time. I will be able to at least do a set of notes tomorrow. Anything that we do from this point on has to be completed. If you don't get it done the due date by March 12th, that's the end of third quarter. The best thing to do is to do as much as you can while on the Google Meet because we do a lot of it together. So any questions?
No, ma'am. No, okay.
All right, I'm gonna stop recording.
Good.